and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, that was very good.
Yeah, it was very
I
loud.
really feel that.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Okay, we will start the meeting as we have been for some time now with public comment. So if anyone is here for public comment, I welcome you to the podium now. Please give your name and address, and comments are welcome on any topic, whether on the agenda or not. Thank you. Anyone?
Good evening. My name is Dave Ram, and I live on Dale Street in North Andover, and I am 88 years old. And I didn't think I was going to lead off this meeting tonight, but so be it. First, before I start my comments to you, I would like to suggest that we refer to the town of North Andover as leaders and not followers. And I will use that periodically. I'm here to discuss the savings of the Stevens estate. That's my primary objective right now, to save the Stevens estate. I've lived in this town all my life. I was a police officer for 30 years. My father before me and his father before him, so I'm a townie. And I've always been very proud of that. I've done things in this town that not many people have done. I've cut ice on Lake Chickwicke. I've swam in a well at the top of Wire Hill. And I've done a lot of other things in this town. When the town of North Andover purchased the Stevens estate, we purchased it with the intent to never see it leave the people of the town of North Andover again, and that's exactly what I intend to do. I had a meeting at the Ridgewood Cemetery office last Saturday with a group of people, and we discussed that topic of saving the Stevens estate. A few weeks ago, I went into Mr. Mailer's office, and I thanked him for what he had done for the town of North Andover, and I congratulated him for what he had done. And I said, I think you are leaving a pretty big pair of shoes to fill. You'll fill them, but those are big shoes. Mr. Mailer was a doer. He was a mover. And that's why the governor of Massachusetts took him from the town of North Andover, because he recognized that Andrew Mailer had a way of doing things. I didn't always agree with Mr. Mailer. I sat down with him 2 or 3 times, and I had conversations with him, and I disagreed with him as I would disagree with you. But we always respected each other. And that's another thing that I like about the town of North Andover. That I can have a disagreement with almost all of my friends, and I can end up always being friendly with them and always having respect for them. When we first took possession of the Stevens estate, a group of people worked awfully hard to do that. But when the committee was formed to determine what to do with the estate, the people who worked awfully hard to establish it in the first place were virtually cut out of the process. And I spoke to several of those people. And they were very disappointed that they did not have a part into determining what happened to that estate. I'm going to give you a little history lesson if I can. It was a beautiful building in North Andover, and it was owned by the Cunard family. It was a magnificent structure, just like the Stevens estate. At one point in time, the estate was owned by the Catholic Church. It was Campion Hall. And Campion Hall was being sold. Before they could find a buyer for Campion Hall, people were going into Campion Hall and they were stealing everything there was in Campion Hall, all the beautiful woodwork. And we tried desperately. All of the men that worked on the North Andover Police Department, we tried desperately to find out who was doing this. I went into that estate one day, and the entire staircase was missing. The magnificent staircase. And if you had ever been in that estate, you would have seen that magnificent staircase that led from the first to the second floor. You couldn't buy a staircase like that today. It would be virtually impossible. So I don't ever want to see that happen to the Stevens estate. I don't ever want to see anybody go into the Stevens estate and take anything from it. That Stevens estate belongs to the people of North Andover, and it should always remain the property of the people of North Andover. And I believe that there's a way to accomplish that. It's going to take some work, and it's going to take some leaders, but we have leaders. You people have been elected to lead this community. And so,
Respectfully, sir, could I ask you to try and wrap up your statement in the next couple of minutes? We usually try and keep these comments to 5 minutes or so, considering we've got a big group.
I would do that, ma'am,
Thank you, sir.
and I'll try to be brief.
Thank you.
What I'm going to propose to you is that you set up a committee to study the Stevens estate. I'm going to suggest that you set up a committee, and on that committee, I'm going to suggest to you that you appoint Kathy Stevens, Wendy Wakeman, Jean Ann Wright, Bill Dolan, James LaFawn, and Tommy Zarico. I'm going to suggest that those people meet in the Ridgewood Cemetery in the office. I am a member of the Ridgewood Cemetery Board of Directors, as is James LaFawn, who is sitting behind me. We don't need to open this office for the committee. We don't need to find out room where they could meet. They can meet in the Ridgewood Cemetery just like we did last Saturday. And then I'm going to suggest to you that you remove the articles from the warrant pertaining to the Stevens estate. And I'm going to propose to you that you set up this committee and that you ask this committee to come back before you at another special town meeting or at next year's town meeting and propose ways to save the Stevens estate. It's going to take some work, but it's not a very hard thing to do because we've done a lot of great things in this town, so I'll leave it with you like that. I would answer any question you have any time, and if you would like me to add to this conversation, any one of you, please ask me to do that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rand.
Yep.
May I ask a question? Would you also be on that committee?
I'm sorry, Rosemary, you and I have known each other for a long time. I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry.
It's not, no, I don't want you to feel sorry. I'm 88 years old, and I have a device on my I carry with me all the time. And I can push a button and I can increase the sound in my hearing aids, and I can decrease it. But I cannot hear certain letters of the alphabet. It's impossible for me to hear them.
My
So
question-
I'll carry on my conversation with you afterwards, if that's
Okay,
okay.
fair enough.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Reed. Do we have any other people here for public comment? If you're here, by the way, for the public hearing on the layout of Wellington Way, we'll hear that during the public hearing. Any other public comments? Okay. We will move to the minutes quickly. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes?
Madam Chairman, approve the open session minutes of April 8th, 2019 as presented.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. If everyone will accommodate me, I'm going to move out of order a bit to cover a couple of items. First, we will have the public hearing for the layout of Wellington Way. Can I hear a motion to move into a public
Madam
hearing?
Chair, I'll move that we move into a public hearing to discuss the layout of Wellington Way.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have an update on Wellington Way from,
Madam Chair, the Public Works Department has signed off on Wellington Way. They're satisfied with the work that's been done over there, but the planning board is still not satisfied and has not made a decision on this. So I would recommend that we continue the public hearing and vote on your next meeting, which is at the meeting before town meeting. You would vote on this and then make your recommendations at town meeting.
Madam Chair, I would move that we continue the public hearing until,
yeah, I was going to
Public
say,
comment
should we have
first.
public comment
Yes,
first?
and
Yeah.
then continue. Yep.
okay, I withdraw my
Anyone here
motion.
for public comment for Wellington Way? Sorry, are you here for?
I'm here on behalf of the applicant, but if you wanted to open it up to other comments first.
Do we want to hear an update from the applicant? Sure. You can give us give us a brief update. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you
I
very
didn't realize
much.
you were here.
My name's Stephanie Kiefer. I'm from Smolik and Vaughan, and here on behalf of Messina Development, seeking for the laying out of Wellington Way, and then likewise the board's recommendation for the warrant article. And just to give you a super brief overview, this subdivision was approved back in September of 2015. Fully constructed. The houses were sold by about 2016, I believe. And over the initial infiltration in the cul-de-sac, it's a 725 linear foot way. The infiltration basin needed to have some updating, and that was completed very late last fall or December-ish. The Conservation Commission has issued a certificate of compliance recorded at the Registry of Deeds. As was noted, Department of Public Works has signed off on the road, and the Planning Board has issued its most recent report. It keeps updating its reports because we've been before the Planning Board. And the most recent one, the only issues that are remaining, and Monica's here, she may speak to that as well, but as I read their updated report, the only issue out there is that the grass isn't fully grown, and as I understand, planning looks for stabilization to be defined as you need to mow it. And we do have yet another 3 weeks before the town meeting and it's going in nicely. Mary Lee Messina of Messina Development was out yesterday, sent me some photos. I can share them with you, but the grass along the entrance and then within the cul-de-sac and whatnot is taking very nicely, and the temperatures are warmer. It's moving forward. With that said, what I would like to ask the board to consider this evening is to advance the laying out portion. And if you want to withhold the recommendation until your meeting just before town meeting, I can understand that. My one concern is, as I read section 23, it references that the plans to be at the town clerk and with town meeting not less than 7 days after. And so I think, and I may be reading it too conservatively because the plan has already been filed with the town clerk, obviously. But I would ask that the board consider accepting the laying out of the way and then withholding its determination on the recommendation for the citizen petition for the town warrant article until your meeting before town meeting. And I would also like to offer to the board what Messina Development has offered to the planning board, that they're committed that the grass is going to fully stabilize, but they've also offered, if the town would like, or if the planning board would like, or if this board would like, to post a bond of $5,000 or so to ensure that that lawn fills in as nicely as it's progressing at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Maybe for town manager. So as far as we know, the planning board, is that consistent with what the planning board is currently saying, is that they're really just concerned about the growth of the grass, that the layout is okay? They're not concerned about how the street is laid out, or how it's really the growth of
And
the...
I'd actually like to defer to Jean Enright. She's here
Oh, hi,
tonight.
Jean.
She could speak on the planning board's behalf.
Just to know, the pictures in your packet of what's there.
Today.
From today?
Yeah.
Hello, Jean Enright, Planning Director. So a memo was submitted late today from Monica Gregoire, who's staff planner, visited the site. All the pictures attached to that memo are from today at approximately 1 o'clock. So I did receive pictures from the developer late today, and I think perspective is some are from a distance as opposed to right over the lawn area. So we're really just looking for stabilization along the shoulder of that roadway, and at the entranceway predominantly is grass coming in, however, not substantially coming in. At the last planning board meeting, I suggested that maybe hydroseed would help spur additional growth quicker. That was not put down. I don't know if additional seed has been added or not. So in addition to the roadway shoulders, the cul-de-sac is growing in. It's matted and it's protected. The entranceway does not have that matting on it. You can see grass establishing, but you can also see dirt along the perimeter of that matting. And then lastly, Lot 5 also had a modification since the plans were approved and constructed. And that entailed, you can see there's a stone trench at the end of a driveway, and there was some reconstruction of a detention basin. It was filled in, loomed and seeded as well, and we're just looking for that also to be stabilized. So.
Okay. So by voting to move the layout forward, can you explain to me what we're doing there? What is the process?
So at the last planning board meeting, they recommended that if you're going to hold the hearing for street layout, the planning board indicated they did not have concerns with the street layout plan itself, but it was more around the stabilization and recommending favorable action. They wanted to wait until their next meeting is also just prior to town meeting.
Okay.
So,
The risk Suzanne mentioned in her memo is that we become liable for that stabilization work if we accept the way,
right.
right?
Okay.
Right,
Yep.
exactly.
So,
Because that stabilization is
Thank
within the right-of-way. It's, the right-of-way extends off pavement,
right.
so.
And can anyone comment as to what the applicant said regarding the acceptance needing to have happened 7 days prior to town meeting? Did I hear that right? Something about 7 days prior to town meeting?
With the clerk.
Needs to be filed.
I can read for you what.
Yeah, that would
They already have it, so that's met?
Oh, okay.
Okay. I mean, if there's no harm in waiting until before, well, I guess we're not, we don't need to deliberate, I guess, until we close the public hearing, but. Okay, any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah, that dialogue just confused me.
Sorry,
wasn't sure what you were...
I didn't mean to start the discussion. I forgot we were in a public hearing.
Okay.
So, any other questions for the applicant or Jean?
Jean, did you have something to say?
No, I was just going to remind you that I think there's somebody from the subdivision itself here.
Yeah, there was...
Yes. So any public comment at this point regarding this way?
Hi, my name is Dan McHugh. I live at 45 Wellington Way, which I think is Lot 5. They did redo some part of the driveway or the sloping beyond the driveway, and they put in a trench. Seems to be effective. There is not grass established. Additionally, on the back side of it, there's a big mound of dirt that was just left there that I'm not sure what that's intended for. When I had emailed Mary Lee Messina, she said that it wasn't complete, but nothing's been done about that. And then the thing that I'm concerned about, and maybe this isn't the right forum, but the whole plan revolved around the proper drainage and establishing grass and all that. Well, we bought our house in 2018, February, I think 28th is when we closed on it, and it was winter and you couldn't tell what the grass situation looked like. So once spring came, you know, everything washed away the way that it was set up. So we still have no grass in our front yard. Like it's, and I've put this to the Messina group or whatever, and they've said that it's my responsibility. But so I've gone to them. I've paid for ChemLawn. I've done all this to try to establish grass. And then finally, I had a landscaper come out and do a soil sample, and he said that, you know, you're never going to establish grass with this soil. So my thing is, this whole plan is developed on that we're going to establish grass, and without me spending $15,000 to $20,000 to redo my lawn, I don't know that I'm going to have a lawn to function the way that it's supposed to. So that's frustrating. I don't know if this is the right recourse for that or whatever, but I just want to be aware of it. Like, we have all these plans that are, you know, that this is how it's supposed to work, and it's not going to work that way until I, you know, do some major renovations on the lawn. The other thing is, when they did put in the trench, they put some mechanical equipment on my driveway and stained my driveway, and have not been able to fix that. So that is frustrating as well. And the top of the driveway, when they altered the plans, they put a lip on the top of the driveway to keep water out from sliding down. That is crumbling, and I don't think is going to last for very long. They did come back and put some dirt over it and some more application, but I'm not in that line of business, but to me it looks like a Band-Aid on a fix. I don't know. It's very discouraging to spend so much money on a new house and have all these problems. But, you know, I don't know. I just want people to be aware of it. And, you know, I moved back from Texas to live here. I'm from Andover. And the problems we've had with this has really been very discouraging. And, you know, there's been minor fixes that we've been able to have that have been good. But, like, I think these are major things that if they're not addressed will not be solved and will continue to have a problem. Again, you know, whenever I brought this up, it's, oh, the drainage plan is this, it's environmentally friendly and whatnot, and I just don't see it's going to work until we establish grass, both on the street and in my yard. And I don't know, I just want somebody to say it. I know I've been communicating with Monica, and she's been great, but I just want people to be aware of that. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other public comments about Wellington Way? Okay. Do we still want to have a motion to continue the hearing? I mean, yeah, I think we should, I mean,
We shouldn't,
I feel we should continue the hearing.
right, we don't want to take on the cost of fixing this if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I move that we continue this hearing until the night of town meeting,
May
our
14th.
our pre-meeting, the night of town meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll do licensing, since we have a bunch of people here for that, and then we'll move out of order after that to 1600 Osgood, just to give you a heads up.
Madam Chair, motion to move into licensing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, we're in licensing. First, we have a request for a one-day liquor license for the Craft Beer Festival fundraiser. And I think we've got somebody here to speak to that.
My name is Tim Breen. I live at 10 Lorraine Ave. I've lived in town my whole life. We just want to give a quick, brief overview of why we're doing this. If you guys have a second, we'll keep it quick. A little under a year ago, I lost my best friend to cancer, died of brain cancer. He was just celebrated his 30th birthday. Flashback to about 2009, I'd introduced him to another friend of mine up in southern Maine. It was just kind of a brief thing. We didn't think it was anything serious. After my friend had passed away, my other friend had told me, hey, you know, I've been talking to Ben. I didn't know if you knew that or not. I said, no, I didn't think you guys even knew each other. My friend Justin, who I just referred to, had been battling stage 4 lung cancer for 7 years. He was diagnosed when he was 21. So this kind of really shocked me. I didn't think they even knew each other, and it turned out that they'd been kind of there for each other in the darkest of moments and stuff like that. it's kind of like a really powerful, idea. Basically, Justin's idea was to form a group at Mass General where young adults can go and connect with other young adults from all over the world who are going through similar stuff, who have nowhere to turn. You have your family, everybody can help, but no one's going through what you're going through. So, it's nice to have that kind of a network. So this was Justin's kind of brainchild. He finally got a big meeting at Mass General about a month ago, or a month and a half ago. We all went down. It was the head of psychology, the head of neurosurgery, the head of fundraising, a lot of very important people at Mass General. So this is a big day for him. And we were all excited. I came back and I talked to Chris. I said, how can we raise some money for this cause, because we need to get it going. His idea was to kind of have a craft beer fest. Everybody, everyone likes beer. It's usually a good time. People are in good spirits, especially sick people. You want to get everybody having a good time, or families of sick people who need a good time. So I pitched it to Justin the next morning, and he was ecstatic. I hadn't seen him that happy in probably 7 years. He'd been sick for 7 years. So we decided, let's do it. Chris started contacting all sorts of breweries, and we were on to it. Unfortunately, 2.5 weeks ago, Justin lost his battle to cancer, so he's no longer with us. He called me about a month ago and said things weren't looking good. That was when me and Chris decided that we should kind of put it out there. So I don't know if you guys have heard anything about it already. We didn't mean any disrespect by putting it out there without your acceptance, but we wanted him to see this kind of take off, and it did. We've had a lot of people reaching out who want to get involved, a lot of breweries who are reaching out who just so we're really looking forward to a good time, to raise a good chunk of money for this cause and kind of get it off the ground. And right before Justin passed away, I said to him, is this something you really kind of want us to keep doing? Do you want to hear about this in your last days? And he said, now is more important than ever. There's so many sick kids every day. I'm sure you hear another story about someone just unexpectedly, coming down with something. So this is kind of our way of trying to get something good going, And one side thing I'll say before Chris talks is, we can see who's buying tickets and stuff like that, and a lot of the people are people we don't know from all over the area, Boston, South Shore. So it's something good that will bring people to town, who wouldn't normally come up here and see kind of what a good town we are, how we all have big hearts, and we're trying to do something good. So, and we want to do it the right way, whatever you want us to do, so we could hopefully make it an annual thing and make it something where we can give a good chunk of money to this fund, because it's so important to us. So, thank you. I like Chris talk.
Honestly, you guys can kind of. I'm here more for the logistical stuff behind it. I was here last year. I don't know if you guys remember me. I put on something similar to this in Amesbury for a couple of years, and then last year I worked with Mr. Valancourt's daughter-in-law to do a little one on the Common. Love North Andover, been here all my life as well, and I always wanted to get something like this going. I'm sure you guys know Macallan's Liquors. There's my association there. But it's just such a great way to get people together, get people out, get the summer kicked off. And I didn't really have a good reason to do it, and then when Tim came to me with this, it just seemed like an absolute no-brainer. So I'll let you guys ask me any logistical stuff. I have a very good grip on what I need to do, all the stuff that goes along with it, so whatever you guys have.
So tell us about the event. What are the logistics?
So I have a close relationship with Lou Minicucci, who owns what used to be the Knights of Columbus on 505 Sutton Street. We were going to try to do it on Osgood, 1600. That didn't work out, so we kind of needed a place, and behind Osgood there's actually a pretty good-sized field. So essentially our plan is to go to Osgood. We're going to fence off the actual
KFC.
Oh, you guys can see it?
Yeah.
Oh.
You said Osgood, the field behind the KFC where they used to do the fall festival.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay, perfect. Yes. Yeah, and you guys have a map in those pamphlets somewhere. So we're gonna be there. We're gonna fence it off, snow fencing. I know that's what you guys like. We're going to. I've spoken to Chief Gray. We're gonna have police details. We're gonna have a personal EMT, I believe. 10 porta potties. We're hoping we have a live band coming. We have a couple food trucks. I know everything that goes along with the fire department, the building inspector, all that stuff. We're gonna have a tent. And essentially we're going to be checking IDs. People will get bracelets. It's a kid-friendly event, so obviously we'll be monitoring that. And as I talked to Susan Pellich today, she wanted all the tip certification from all these breweries who are going to be serving the actual beer. So I got about 12 of them, and I emailed them to her, which wasn't what I was supposed to. I was supposed to add them as attachments, so I'm going to do that. And I'll get one for all the breweries that are going to be participating. And we're going to be passing out 4-ounce plastic cups, and we're going to be doing 2-ounce pours to everybody. And again, these people all know to be aware of the signs of someone getting drunk. So keep everyone in check, and yeah, essentially, that's it.
One question, if I could. How are you confirming age eligibility at this function?
I'm going to be checking the IDs, which is tip certified, and then, yeah, so.
Will you have your machine there?
Yeah.
You'll have your machine there.
Because I was going to say we were only going to accept mass IDs, but obviously we have so many people coming to Maine and whatnot, so we're going to.
Who's the insurance holder for this?
I'm doing it through Perry Insurance.
Okay, so it's the nonprofit, or is it?
The nonprofit's going to be, going to pay for it, but after the fact.
One thing you will need, though, if you do have a band, is an entertainment license for that. So just sort of in terms of your timing, the window's closing fast.
Quick, okay.
And the food trucks do need to be inspected
Yep.
prior to, so, just, you've been down the road, but this is a little wider path.
Yeah.
This year. So just try not to rush it, but stay on these.
And on your diagram, Chris, where were you planning on putting the entertainment?
I had it in the lower right corner, if you'll see where the food trucks were.
Yeah.
Just going to be right on the field there. And I think we plan on
Oh,
bringing
okay,
it
that
stage, I
small
think.
square is
Yeah,
going to be the stage.
yeah.
Okay, so that's where neighbors are, right? The neighborhoods are in that section of the, if I'm looking at this correctly, that's where,
We could flip-flop and put it on the China Blossom side if it would be better for the neighbors.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any neighbors here tonight to discuss this, but,
It's over by 4 o'clock as well. It's just 12 to 4.
okay.
Oh,
So-
and one other thing, and I think you misspoke, you said Osgood, but it's Sutton.
Sutton, yeah. Sorry.
And just one thing we didn't say about the parking. I spoke with Mike Miller this morning, who's the director at the Lawrence Airport, and he gave us his blessing to park where the Columbia guys were parking. And we're going to have a police officer crossing traffic from, that big field where the entrance to the airport is. And he said we're a go for that, so that should take care of all the parking.
We're also coordinating with Uber to supply like a discount code so that people who go to the event can use that code,
That's
get a
great.
discount.
That's good thinking.
Wow. You're really
So how many
planning.
people are you actually expecting?
We'd like to get like 800, that'd be great.
There was a comment by Mike Byrne about keeping it under the capacity of the facility, but I don't know what that is. It's an outdoor facility, so I don't know what
Yeah.
what he,
Oh,
what
maybe
they.
the
think it's
fenced-in
2
area?
acres.
What is established as the fenced-in area, that it's going to meet that capacity?
And
Yeah, we believe-
all he says is occupancy remains at or under the posted allowance, and I don't know what that is. So if you're talking about 800 people, that's a lot of people. I don't know what the posted allowance is on a field.
I think it's 2 acres, that field, no?
It's either 2 acres, the whole property is either 4 acres or just the field is. But the fall festival, when we had it there, would always be approximately that number of people.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's manageable, and we had a police detail there as well.
Yeah.
across
Yeah,
the
we're gonna
street
have
at
2 or 3
parking.
police
So it's not-
officers.
This type of event, though it's a beer truck event, the whole concept of having an event on that back field isn't unheard of.
Not new, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's done.
And it's happening at the same time of day that event did.
Oh,
And the 19th is a Saturday, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
18.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. We meant to bring.
Well, I think it's terrific, and it's really fun for me, especially with some parents in the room, to hear all these town names. The parents must be pretty proud of their kids today, so coming forward with that, knowing your parents, both of you, and some other names that are in here. So thank you so much for doing this.
No, we appreciate it.
It's good cause. And, I'll just say, you guys did run the event on the Common last year, and it was very well received, and it was very well run. There wasn't any issues that I can remember. I was there for a while, and there wasn't any issues. It was done well, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I motion approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just
So you may
tie
have
up
to
a few
come-
of those loose ends.
100%,
Yeah, you
guys,
might-
thank
you
you so
have to
much.
come-
Thanks for telling me about the entertainment. Thank you.
And, yeah, the entertainment license.
All right. Guys, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, we appreciate it.
Okay, and the only other item we have is a request of St. Gregory's Church for a one-day all alcohol license. Is there anybody here to speak to that?
I believe this is an annual event. also a very well-run event.
We've never had any issues that I can recall. I would move approval.
Second.
Yes, ma'am?
If you notice on the recommendation, the police are requiring a detail, and the applicant has requested a waiver of that.
Have we ever had a detail there before? I don't believe so. Have we ever had any issues with that
But
event?
it is in the regulations.
Well, my understanding is that we have some flexibility in the interpretation of that. So, and I guess this is where sort of, how do you balance history with judgment? You know, what kind of an event, what sort of crowd, do we need traffic control? This is an annual event, and we haven't had a police detail or private previously. What's some of the thoughts around this table on that?
Well, I guess given that request by the police, I think, we need to give that consideration. This event is for June 13th. We have a couple meetings prior to it. I would suggest if we could get a representative from St. Gregory's in here to discuss it with them. I don't want to just go by there saying, asking a waiver and not really understanding why, and maybe there's some alternatives.
Sorry. The last page of the packet
It
is
explains
the
it.
email chain.
Yeah.
Detective Lannon actually suggested that the applicant ask for the waiver. Okay.
Because otherwise, they're going to have to pay the detail fee.
Which is kind of pricey.
Kind of, yeah, so it sort of undercuts the,
So the police department, though, they followed what our liquor regulations were by making the recommendation. But because of the nature of this event, we just historically don't need one. And frankly, I've never gotten any feedback about this event one way or another. I think it's pretty modestly attended. It's why it's able to go until 11:30 without ever any problem. They have a limited space at the church itself. Of course, they have parking, and they have their own Sunday services that they typically have.
I would move my motion again,
I would second
without the
again.
detail. Yes.
So the motion was approval?
yeah.
Yes,
With the waiver?
with the waiver.
With the waiver.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? And
Nope,
you
I didn't
second?
see that email at the very end there. I hadn't quite
It's in the
done
middle of the page.
that. Yeah, I see it now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I appreciated that Officer Lannon stepped up with that. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Okay, I think that takes us out of licensing. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to move out of licensing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, licensing.
Okay, now if everyone will indulge me, I will move the presentation regarding 1600 Osgood to be next, and then we'll go back to our regular agenda order.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, John Smolak, here with my partner Brian Vaughn of Smolak and Vaughn, as attorneys for Hillwood Development Corporation. Hillwood Development is a Texas-based real estate company that you'll hear a bit more about very shortly. With me this evening is Gary Frederick, who's the Senior Vice President for the Northeast, based in Hillwood's Harrisburg, Pennsylvania office. Also with us this evening is Sean O'Brien, who's the Vice President of Development with Hillwood's Atlanta, Georgia office. And again, we thank you for accommodating our schedule, and we really are excited to be here to talk about an opportunity for 1600 Osgood Street, which we feel is really a significant redevelopment opportunity that comes around once in a great while. So for many years, really, I guess since or before the departure of Lucid at the site, the town's been looking for an opportunity for redeveloping 1600 Osgood Street to bring it back to its heyday when Western Electric was there and operating and running well and really being the sort of economic arm of the Merrimack Valley. And so for years, we've been looking for an opportunity to reposition the property at 1600 Osgood Street. And the current owners, although they've been good stewards for the property, we really haven't found a good solution for redevelopment at the site. We've We've been told time and again that the days of the single-tenant user at this site will never appear again, like there was at Western Electric. We thought that rezoning for multifamily housing would be a great fit for the site, because that would spur on the redevelopment of retail at the site. But unfortunately, the days of the recession hit and didn't work out, and we're seeing some of the result of that at this town meeting. And we also encourage the site for high-end retail, but realistically, the trips aren't there to develop a high retail use at the site. And plus, the trips that would be, the traffic that would be created by a high retail site really isn't something that is practical for this site. So again, this evening, I'm really personally excited to be here this evening to talk about this redevelopment opportunity. I think it's a real game changer, potentially for the town. And again, it's one of these opportunities that we feel that comes around really once in a generation that this town, again, has not seen for a long time. And so with that introduction, I'd like to introduce Gary Frederick, who will discuss a little bit about his company and a little bit about the opportunity that we're talking about at 1600 Osgood. Gary?
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, and I appreciate the audience and chance to come before you. We have, I'll start with Hillwood. Hillwood is a national real estate development and investment company based in Dallas, Texas. We are privately held by the Perot family, and we are involved with development across the country. We are primarily involved in industrial real estate, distribution centers, fulfillment centers, warehouses, and we have been involved with something approaching 200 million square feet of that type of product across the country. I've been lucky enough to work for them for about 20 years and have been working in the Northeast since 2002. We have a very good customer, our largest customer, who has a need for large-scale e-commerce fulfillment centers. We all like to go click, click, click and see the box on our porch tomorrow, but in order for that to happen, they've got to have very sophisticated supply chain and logistics network to make that a reality time and again. And so we have supported this company with almost 30 of these centers across the country. We are, our job is to identify locations that are suitable for their use. And I believe North Andover and 1600 Osgood is a very good fit for this use. Obviously, pending the acceptance of this use by the community. We, most importantly, they will need at least 1,500 full-time, regular people, consistent, productive people, and I think that this community stacks up very well on that piece of the requirement. Obviously, you've got to be able to get those people in and out and on the roads, and it's got to be supported from transportation, access, utilities, all of those things. And so we think that the redevelopment of a large portion of 1600 Osgood is a very good fit for this use. So we have been working with ownership of 1600 Osgood for over a year. We've had some robust negotiations to solidify a contract, and we're proud to report that we've done so. And we are ready to move forward with what we call entitlements, meaning the right to build this thing. And so Attorney Smolak and his partner have looked for some zoning relief issues that we need some help on. I don't know, Sean, you want to tell them a little bit about the building itself and where those zoning relief issues might fall?
Sure. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with the site, but what the plan is to only leave the office buildings out front. The rest of the buildings on the site would be demolished, and this new building would be built behind the office building, roughly about 1,000 feet off the road. Currently, we're looking at a building that is a ground floor plus 4 elevated floors, mostly robotics for those elevated floors. So we're looking at kind of a building that's roughly at the parapet 95 feet, with the highest point being 105 feet. So that was one of the zoning amendments we were looking for, as a height change. And the FAR on the building is, with all those floors and all that space, it comes out to about 3.6 million square feet. So it's a highly automated building with conveyors, racking, and robotics to work this facility and make it efficient. So those are a couple of things that we're looking for. I think there's a solar component on the site now that we're going to relocate on the same site, but it currently is spread out amongst a couple of areas on the ground right now and on the rooftop. So we're going to relocate that piece of it. So we were looking for some potential zoning, John, for maybe some setbacks to help us keep that maybe further back off the road and make that a little bit more attractive from a standpoint of planning and zoning and keeping it off the street. So those are the things that we're looking for as far as the building goes. So with that demolition of all those buildings in there, there's asbestos in there, so we're kind of cleaning that up as we move on and construct this new building, which is, again, it'll be a very modern building, and the use is, it's not a heavy water use. There's no process. It's all just folks in there working, water fountains, bathrooms. There's no noxious chemicals in there. It's all pretty much stuff that you would find in any store, single packaged things like that. So there's no big bulk that's being constructed there. So it's just mainly being brought in there, broken down, and shipped out. So we like the site for the access, as Gary mentioned before. The trucks
only to the north.
The trucks, we talked about having them only go to the north on Osgood to keep the truck traffic out of the community. And that's really the preferred way that they want to get in and out of there anyway.
So obviously, stop us any point with questions, but we are, let's talk about the process of how we're going to get to where we need to, and that, go ahead, John.
Yeah, if I could, Gary. And so, unfortunately, timing is never perfect when you're dealing with a real estate deal and trying to deal with the nature of town meeting. We had contemplated the idea of trying to move this, advance this to this annual town meeting, but realistically, we didn't want to rush it just for the sake of rushing it. And so, but on the other hand, we don't want to lose this opportunity for this to occur. And so
it's really critical for us to eliminate the uncertainty that we know we can build it. And that's our primary goal, is to eliminate that uncertainty as soon as we can.
And so the way to accomplish that would be some sort of a town meeting vote. And so what we would like the board to consider is the possibility of holding a separate and distinct special town meeting to be held sometime in June before the summer months. simply because, again, it's an opportunity that we want to start working on. And for all the reasons you've heard, it's I think a perfect fit for this site, and something that I think the town's been looking for a long time. And we would have 7 or 8 weeks to be able to accomplish that from now to sometime in June. So we'd seriously like to have the board consider taking a look at that. This is a process, obviously, and we intend to undertake significant outreach to the neighborhood and to others in the town to educate them a little bit more about this proposal. But I don't think you could find a use that is less impactful to the town than this particular type of use.
I want to say thank you for not trying to wedge that in with a rush and trying to get it in this window at our regularly scheduled town meeting. I know that sometimes our annual calendar, because we are a town form of government, and in New England it's a once-a-year hit unless you call a special, so I appreciate your sensitivity to that, because I could definitely feel why it would be a pull to let's hurry up and get it in and not properly get the information out to the public, but also have you all get your ducks in a row. So thank you for picking us, just from everything that you've said. As a side note, I know I said us and you're before the town of North Andover right now, but last fall, 2 falls ago, excuse me, the entire region came together, identifying this particular site as not just a benefit to North Andover if we developed responsibly, but a benefit to the entire, again, region, Lawrence, Andover, Haverhill, Methuen. And so, I mean, I think this is something that, while you're before this board, I mean, it's an exciting thing for the entire region and all the communities in this area.
One of the other items I want to mention is that, we've been waiting a long time, and we've had multiple master plans done for this corridor, and it presents a significant economic development opportunity. In addition, we've been waiting for a larger end user to come in who might have the ability to assist and to contribute towards a solution on sewer in this part of town. So that's something we'd like the town to consider as well, because I know that the town has examined the possibility of extending sewer along this corridor. And so, there are a number of alternatives to sewer at the site. And again, Hillwood is willing to contribute to that effort. We'd love to have further discussions with the state. Incidentally, the state is aware of this, and they think it's a real big deal. It is a real big deal. It's a real big deal for the town, for Merrimack Valley, and for jobs in this area. And it would be nice to extend that sewer, perhaps, from the site down Osgood Street, perhaps as far down to Sutton Street to China Blossom, to provide a reliable sewer source for the area, not only for this user, but also for other users along that corridor. It's something that, again, we've been talking about for a long time, and would love to have that opportunity happen sooner as opposed to later, while we have the opportunity. So.
Madam Chair, we have to also consider that this project isn't going to hurt the infrastructure of the school. It's not going to bring, had there been any other type of development there, it would have brought a lot of students and individuals to the school system, which would have been a very big burden on the school system. This is all, this is a good thing. It's going to bring jobs to the community.
I completely agree with one of the comments that you made. This is like the lowest impact possibility, really.
And it really,
coming with the traffic going all north.
Right, and it really is coincidental in terms of the proposed repeal of the 40-hour overlay district. Yep. That will eliminate the possibility of 530 residential units, which was at the time, I thought a good idea, because it was a way to try to spur on economic development in that particular property. But just, and that property at one time was under agreement for development of residential, and so it could come back again, but this, I think, is a far better alternative for this site and for this town.
Is it
for that use.
on the repeal?
No.
It's not.
No, it's not.
In the off chance that the repeal doesn't happen, we can,
Correct, absolutely. Because that's simply an overlay district, we would intend to try to work under the existing underlying industrial 2 zoning district. That district really was designed or developed or crafted back in the 70s, when industrial meant flat, single building, high bay warehouse, and didn't really reflect the opportunity or couldn't really contemplate the e-commerce explosion that we've had. And so what you're having is more vertical, mechanized operations for the type of facility that Gary had discussed.
Without giving out too much information, is there examples of some of your development builds that we could look at to see, what the buildings look like? I mean, I'm trying to envision, the trucks, I'm assuming will all be out in the back, will not be visible from the street, and how, what the facades would look like, how the building would present from the street. I understand you said it's going to be 1,000 feet back, and of course, all of this I know has to go through planning board and everything else, but I'm just curious if you've got examples out there that we could take a peek at. Maybe if they have to be redacted or whatever, but.
Absolutely. I'd like to get a couple examples before you, and I'm confident that I can do that, but I want to make sure that I'm that I'm being consistent with the non-disclosure agreement that I'm under, and I'm confident that I can, and that'll be forthcoming. And we have one other project in New England, and New Jersey, Pennsylvania. There's a couple of attributes to this thing that are really kind of like an alignment of the stars and planets. One is, it's really hard to find a site like this that doesn't have abutting residential. So the abutters, we call them NIMBYs, not in my backyard. They're not going to like it no matter what you do. But there's no abutting residential here, which is really awesome.
We agree.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
what makes that site appealing, especially.
Another thing is that I've converted a Pratt & Whitney jet engine aircraft. I call them Cold War plants, where they were building stuff during the Cold War. They had all these environmental problems. Then you turn it into one of these things, chemical plants, coal mines, things that are, where industry has left blight behind, and they've left, like a scar on the community and a hole in the economic fabric of a community. And I can't tell you that I think I may have one of the most satisfying jobs that there is, to be able to bring the new age of American commerce to the community to replace that scar. And it's really a great thing when you see it happen, and I'll be happy to provide multiple examples of just that where we've done it. We will clean up. There will be environmental cleanup here of what's been left behind, and so it's really we like to think of it as a win-win. Obviously, we're doing this for our living, but it's a positive for the community.
So what are the nature of the 1,500 jobs? We have a couple of members of the press here tonight. I know that's going to be a headline. So,
One's right behind you.
Yeah, what are the natures? What are the nature of the 1,500 jobs? What type are they? I know it's not manufacturing. Are they warehouse workers? Are they, what?
It will range from management salary people, technical people to make this thing run, to people who operate material handling equipment, forklifts, conveyors. There'll be pickers and packers. We are confident in a $15 an hour minimum with benefits, and we're and as what going all the way up through salary positions for management and technology. So it is absolutely getting that stuff that you're clicking on your iPad about into a box and into a FedEx truck or a UPS truck. So it's warehouse work, but it's highly technical. This is state-of-the-art facility. This will be as advanced a warehouse fulfillment center as there is any place in the country.
Do you see this as a 3-shift, 7-day-a-week operation as well? I mean, given the fulfillment of some of these click places, I know you get packages every day, right?
It's seasonal, just like retail is very seasonal. Maybe half the business comes in the fourth quarter, but At times, it'll be 24/7. I think primarily it's 2 shifts most of the year, but when they've got to put the pedal to the metal, it runs around the clock.
And I would like to add sort of a bit to what Gary had indicated just a moment earlier, and it's really interesting how things come full circle. When Western Electric was built in the 50s, it was considered the height of innovation. And now we're reinventing ourselves with a new facility that is going to be state-of-the-art in terms of innovation. So it's sort of recycled itself over a generation and a half to a new use that I think this town would be very happy with.
I agree. I'm writing down all the pluses, the not a drain on our water system, not noxious, 1,500 great jobs. You already seem to be talking about a good traffic plan. It's like check, check, check. And, you know, that facility, I'm sure some people in the room like Mr. Rand would remember when that 14,000 people worked there. So we won't even have the traffic issues that were addressed in years past. And again, state-of-the-art, so we're talking other things such as increasing the tax base. That was the #1 taxpayer, Western Electric, in its time. So we'll be increasing the tax base, and then, of course, we've got permitting fees. There's a real lot of good here for us to take a good hard look at. So I'm going to ask you the hard question, if you're ready. So you're talking about trucks and truck routes and all of that is great. Cargo planes. Is there any chance that this would be transported to our airport in cargo planes?
No.
So
I don't. That airport, as we understand it, is not sufficient for that type of operation.
Okay, that's good to hear. So it's a definite no. So no to cargo planes.
And I could also say that working with Hillwood over the past 8 months has been an absolute pleasure. They are one of the most professional groups and well-heeled groups to work with, and their experience shows. And you know, we couldn't have a better partner for this town than Hillwood in this potential project if we do decide to go forward.
We'll let them reserve judgment on that.
So just to say a few words on the process and for people listening or watching, the special town meeting would be to approve changes to the zoning bylaw. They would then go through the site plan review special permit process based on those changes. It's not a town meeting that approves the end state of the project. I just feel like sometimes there's confusion amongst the public as to what, we're really just allowing them the opportunity to proceed through the permitting process by having a special town meeting and changing the bylaw, and I just want to make that point. So you have, you've made a request for a June special town meeting. You must feel fairly confident in your ability to get these zoning changes drafted and through the public hearing process with the planning board by mid to end of June?
Yeah, we haven't been before the planning board yet, obviously, but we hope to be before them very shortly, as soon as we can, to sort of give them an idea of what we're looking to do, consistent with what we've discussed this evening. But it's really on us to make our case. And we intend to undertake the outreach necessary to convince voters that this is a great use for this town, and so that's on us. But we certainly want to cooperate with the town and work with the town. We actually met with folks from community development and also the acting town manager as well as town council this morning to discuss that process in the event the board wanted to take that next step. So that's ongoing, and what the handicap that we had is we've been under a non-disclosure agreement for many, many months. And so it was only until late last week we were able to start to talk to the town in any meaningful way, as well as the state. And so we have a little bit of our due diligence to complete on that end, but we feel confident that the zoning relief that we're looking for is consistent with other zoning in other districts. So it's not something that's really out of place. So And plus, the planning board will make sure it won't be out of place. That's our job, to convince the planning board as well through a permitting process that will discuss stormwater, it'll discuss traffic, it'll discuss aesthetics, it'll discuss lighting, all the things that are important to the town and to that area. And although there aren't really residential well, there are a couple of smaller rental apartments in that area, but there's also a large area, neighborhoods behind, on the other side, on the easterly side, I guess, of Osgood Street. So, we'll undertake that outreach too, to let them know what we're doing, and it's really on us to try to get the word out, and hopefully we can convince this board and other boards and other members of the town that this is a great opportunity.
I appreciate the fact that you're looking to do it quickly. I mean, being in real estate, obviously not even near the magnitude of this project, but time is really important in real estate, and if it doesn't work out, they clearly move to another site. But I also appreciate the fact that you're doing it in June when people are still in town. I think it's the right thing to do, that make sure that as many people who would be interested in this project would be available before they go away for the summer. And I think waiting for the summer to pass is a long time in the real estate business. So I liked, you'll all have to work hard to get it all done, and I'm sure you'll be able to do that. But I think it is important that we act reasonably quickly, but also at a time when we make it available for our citizens to participate. So,
Just kind of spinning off of that, do you have a timeline prepared yet, or do you still need to work with the town staff to get that? So, what are our milestones that we need to hit to get to a June town meeting,
Yes, we're still working with town staff to determine that. I've provided my preliminary comments. I think it can work well. There probably would need to be special meetings of certain boards to make it happen, and so I hope that they would be a willing participant in that process. I know it's a very busy time. It's town meeting time, right in the middle. But again, we have some good people working on this, and from the town side, and we think we could get this accomplished.
So when do you think we could get at least a rough draft of that timeline, something that we could just be able to lay out in front of us and say, this is what we need to do?
Well, I've actually submitted that earlier today, not to the board, because we want town comment on that internally before a schedule is developed. But we want to make sure town council concurs as well in terms of the planned schedule.
Great. Looking forward to seeing it.
Chair, that's what I wanted to make a comment on, is that we have to be aware that it is a short timeline in order to fit in a special town meeting in June. It's not that to say that it can't be accomplished, but there are going to have to be some additional meetings, because we should have 3 public hearings for planning board. That's typically what they do. Can they get it done in 2? Maybe, but they usually have 3. So it's going to take some working, and some work on their part to get all the documents prepared and presented and work with the planning and ZBA.
And that's a fair comment. I mean, I think that the types of zoning adjustments that we're looking at, and we still have to finalize that, aren't really significant in terms, and they're more dimensional issues that are readily understood, easily explainable, and it's just we also need to work with the planning board to make sure that they have comfort, and that any zoning changes really have limited applicability, because we want to make sure that we try to focus on this site itself.
Right. And we'd have 2 dates available. It would be the 11th or the 18th would be for the special in June, right? So it would be tight.
And that would afford at least 2 or 3 meetings with the planning board, just on a draft schedule that I put together. But again, we haven't had that discussion with the board yet, and so we'll learn a bit more once we have an informal discussion with them at a next board meeting.
So, I mean, I understand the reasoning to get it in June, because everybody's here. If we can't achieve that, it's going to have to go into July.
I think we need to work very hard and get it into. And I think we can.
You want to make
just put the message out that we need to get this.
Yeah, you want to make sure that we're notifying everybody. Everybody's aware of it. We have enough meetings. We don't want, for anybody to say they didn't hear about this.
Exactly. But I think all the more reason for June versus July.
Yeah,
This
but
is our
this is a
priority.
good thing.
Yeah.
That's one point. This is a good thing, and we want to go with it. We want to make sure that everybody gets the word out, and
We've definitely
Yes.
heard loud and clear from many,
yes.
all residents. They want
learned.
ample time to weigh in and give their comments,
Yeah.
but
Learn
we
from
also
it.
want to respect the fact that
Process. And what needs
real estate is a fast-moving thing, and we do not want to lose this opportunity.
And to
At
your
all.
point, Madam Chair, what it is that we're actually voting on at a
Right.
town meeting. It is
Exactly.
narrow.
The
zone
entree to the
changes.
process.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
This is.
And I never like to spend my clients' money, but I know that Hillwood is willing to dedicate some resources to this effort, should the town decide to choose that option as well, whoever the town may want to choose for additional assistance. That's out there as well.
What you're saying, to assist the planning board and other boards, is that what
Well,
you're
just,
suggesting?
yeah, if that would facilitate the process, not to sacrifice process, we just want it to be more meaningful, because we know staff is very tied up on a lot of different things, and this project's a lot to swallow in the time frame that we have. But I think it's definitely doable if we all pull together, and I think as a town, it's just, again, one of those opportunities that we don't want to miss out on.
I think everybody has said that, and we're, here's as though, without a vote, we're all willing to work with you and work with you hard, and I,
Mhm.
Can I ask a question?
Ah,
Peter Breen,
This is-
770 Boxford Street. I just happen to live the farthest away from the place, but I also own 1451 Osgood Street. That's where I run my business. And I'm thrilled to hear this. I came here you're right, to support Tim and Jake and Chris. But this is great news, and my whole family will vote for this, because I've been down there since...
what you don't know, he has a really big family. I'm sorry, Peter, I couldn't resist.
So I've owned that place since 1997, and just, I look out the window, you can see Lucent, and I do a little bit of plowing down there, but it's doing nothing. But the question I had for you was, is it 3.4 million square feet? Is that what it is?
About 3.6.
3.6, and we're 2 million now, right? So 1.6? That's great. And as long as, Carrie grew up right on Sutton Street, my wife, and she was there for the 14,000 trips a day going up and down, so it's great that it's going to be good use of the facility, but not 15,000 people and not 500 more kids for the school system. So it sounds like a great thing. And if you need any help, we're there.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Sorry, this is really not a time for public comment. I should not have actually.
Well, the question was really about the square footage. Maybe
Okay.
Okay.
So can we, do we have any more questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
I think this is a very exciting project. Thank you very much for coming tonight and talking to us about it. A couple of things, I guess, I think I would ask Lynn to work with, start discussions with the state and about the sewer.
Yep.
I think that's a really great opportunity. Also, not necessarily that I want to take them up on an offer to help fund any support, but we should be cognizant of the fact that our economic development director is no longer here, and our planning staff is overworked with lots of other work on their plates, and we are in a tight time frame. So
Yep.
I would ask if you could look into maybe some other consultant to help us.
Good.
Okay.
I've
We all
instructed
agree we're
Dee.
understaffed right now, right?
Yeah.
So,
Dee has already done some research. She's reached out. We're actually going to be meeting with somebody next Monday to discuss the option of coming in and working on a consulting basis with us to get us
Wonderful.
to when we can fill that position after we get a new town manager. Yep. So we are on board. We're on that. Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts for what Lynn should be starting to work on? Okay, great.
Very exciting.
Very
I've
exciting.
spent 20 years of
Thank
my
you
life in
for-
that building, so I'm really excited to see something happen to it.
We appreciate the warm welcome. It's great.
Sorry, given the gas crisis, I'm sorry, I just had to notice that I smelled gas.
Every once in a while, a
You do?
little bit. Yeah, I did as well.
No.
I smell I have a very strong sense of smell.
No.
Sorry for that interruption of that.
Not
last
to
comment.
There's none in this building,
Okay, sorry.
so we're good.
I'm very sensitive now when it's.
Yeah, you and me both.
I usually can smell it, I don't smell it.
Anyway, so thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming in.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks.
Thanks for the update.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So now we will go back to our regular schedule.
Thank you, nice meeting you. Thank you.
Cleaned house.
I assumed a lot of people wanted to hear about that and wouldn't mind us moving that forward.
No, it's great. Exciting.
So governmental reports, the first item under governmental reports is an update from our community support coordinator, Deanna. So this will be the first time we've had you giving us an update since you started the role, so thank you.
Yes, it's been 8 months. Can you believe it? My goodness. So I provided a couple of handouts for you. One has the pie chart on one side, and we can start with that one. So in the 8 months that I have been here, numbers are not exactly precise because in the first few months we didn't have a recording system in place for folks that were coming in. So there's been approximately 98 individuals or families that I have served in this time, and you can see in the pie chart the largest percentage are families that were impacted by the Columbia gas crisis. And that may have been a specific mental health issue or somehow their day-to-day life, quality of life was impacted, and they came to my attention. The next largest category, which was quite frankly a surprise to me, was the seniors with aging-related issues, which I found to be quite surprising because we have such an active senior center. But what I found was that there are many seniors that are pretty isolated in their homes and don't have social supports in their families. So that's been a large percentage as well. And those folks, the issues tend to be more long-term, so I've been working with them in a more ongoing kind of basis. Other folks that have come to my attention, families with children, these have been referrals from the school department, various different levels within the school system, so school administration and different schools. Adults with addiction issues and adults with chronic mental health issues, and then the folks that just drop in with questions about referrals or how to access services. So a lot of these folks are people that I have worked with, again, on more than one occasion, that will initially, I'll spend quite a bit of time with them, and then as they're stabilized and referred off to long-term providers, outpatient providers, then they see me less and speak with me less. Then on the back, just to give you an idea of the referral sources, so as expected, the police department, the fire department, the schools, primarily it's been the high school, the middle school. The school department administration central office has actually been a very good referral source, and I've worked with them collaboratively on a lot of different projects, which has been great and really been a tremendous asset in being able to refer students for support. The Senior Center, Veteran Services, our own Veteran Services here in Town Hall, but also the VA hospital in Bedford has referred clients. Our Town Council, the Housing Authority, the Health Department, Inspectional Services, community members have referred neighbors that they thought might need support, and then self-referrals, people just seeing information out and about. So it was pretty slow in the first few months getting the word out because, as you recall, right the week before I started was the Columbia gas crisis, so things were pretty busy around here. But lately, it's really I've been very busy with a lot of referrals. Some of the other things that I do besides work with individuals is participate in events and bridging the gaps in services in the community, and really, being a liaison in the community for the different systems. And it's, again, the schools have been tremendous in utilizing me in many different ways. So because of that, I've been able to access the schools very openly and freely, and been able to connect folks in the community with the right people in the schools, and connect the schools with other departments, and know what's going on in the schools. So that's really been great. Other things that we engage in, recently, the other flyer that you have there, back in January, I've partnered with a community support coordinator for the town of Andover, and we have begun a weekly support group for family members who, or anyone who is dealing with a loved one who has a mental health or addiction issue. We convene the group every Tuesday night right now at the YMCA of Andover, North Andover, and the group is hugely successful. Right from the first week, there have been 8 families who've attended consistently. As you know, the position in Andover has been there for about 3 years, so they have a little more of a foundation there. But we have had families from North Andover attend as well, and it is open to anybody from the community. It's been very successful. So, there are other things there that you can look at that I've been involved in. We did recently have the Recognizing Trauma workshops, which were very helpful for the folks that attended, and we're looking at I'm partnering with the health department here in Town Hall to get folks in the community trained in identifying, it's called mental health first aid, so that you can identify mental health issues in other people. And this is really coming out of that Recognizing Trauma workshop. We see that there's a need for it in the community. So there's a lot going on. It's really picking up quickly, and there's going to be a need for more services for the community. There's definitely, the need for the clinical, hands-on, meeting people when they're in crisis, but there's also the need for the development of these systems and these partnerships in the community, which are really 2 different things. So, questions?
Yeah, how do you split your time? You service both the schools and...
I service everybody.
Right, so how do you split your time? Do you spend time in the schools?
Whoever calls me first. I mean, really, that's been one of the challenges is, coming up with some kind of structure. So initially, the fire chief, the police chief, and I determined that I would not respond to 911 calls as they were happening unless there was something unusual about it where I could be of assistance in that moment. So we determined right away that I'm not going to be running to every 911 call. What they do is send me a referral after the call has been handled. So that kind of dictates my day somewhat. There are times where there are urgent calls, and I'll respond to those. Otherwise, it'll be following up with the folks that I already have a relationship with. So it's really kind of just trying to fit everything in, which is why I anticipate that my department of 1 is going to need more support as I get more involved in these different committees and working on the kind of the infrastructure of this job. It's going to be more difficult to, at some point in the future, not now, it will be more difficult to respond to the crisis situations that arise, and vice versa. There's certainly times, how many staff meetings have I missed because there's been a person in crisis at my door. So it is difficult, but thus far it's worked because, again, it's only been 8 months.
I want to say how happy, sounds weird to say how happy I am to hear that. Because if you weren't there, where would that person in crisis be going? Mm-hmm. And I know that when I first sought out, when this position was first introduced to me, I was thinking of it very narrowly as a response to the opioid crisis. And I was surprised. I know some of us went, we spoke, Selectman Keen, Lieutenant Folds spoke with what was happening in Andover, we spoke with Sopan, and he had talked about the surprising response from the senior population. And so I guess in a way it's not surprising, but it's also just a strong reminder of just how the mental health need as a community is just ever present, and the stigma associated with it makes it really tough to reach those people. And so I just want to communicate to you, because I don't often have the chance to speak, but I was pulled aside 2 weeks ago by someone who started asking me about you, and I was thinking, oh, I didn't know if they were looking for a referral, and what they wanted to say was that they had spoken to someone whose name they didn't give me, and the woman described you as having saved her family. And so I wish I could even give you privately more information, and I can't anyways, but it was just a really interesting feeling to have, because I think that we all like to look for government when we create programs that they work and they provide support. And so I just, for these people that you're interacting with, the stories we're getting back, stories I'm getting back at least, making a difference in people's
Well, I'm
lives.
happy to hear that. And really, the most important thing, and when people ask me, you know, can people with addiction issues be saved? Yes, everybody can be helped and saved through relationships, through social interactions, and really, you know, like, it's a long, complicated process, but what people are missing the most, the people who struggle with mental health issues and with addiction issues, is the social supports. And I don't do anything, well, I shouldn't say this, I do a lot of amazing things.
Yes, you do.
But really, it's about being the person who's there and listening in their time of need. You know, there's obviously skills that are involved in that, but that's what people lack when they're in crisis. So it is hard work, but it's not, you know, the back-breaking hard work that some other people have to do, so.
Well, you're changing lives. So just thank you, because I think you represent our whole community, our whole town hall when you go and do that. And if people can start thinking of our town hall and our community in general, our town community, as having resources that help people in these non-traditional but equally important ways to when they're dialing 911, I think that that's what a community is. And so that's just one more piece.
Yep, and it's been great, too, that a lot of folks are really thinking more preventatively now. So in the police department, the fire department, they've been great, really thinking about making referrals so that folks have support before the next 911 call happens, like really identifying who can benefit from the service.
So other than the ask for additional staff, what else? What can this board help you with? Is there anything immediate that?
Well, really, it's been the biggest surprise to me has really been, you know, the demographics, quite frankly. So I know I personally, in my career, have always focused on addiction treatment and working with proven risk populations. So now working with so many folks in older adulthood, I'm like, wow, I need to learn a lot. So additional trainings in that area. And the senior center is really, the staff there has been great with forwarding information. But really, like, the day-to-day stuff, everything is pretty well fulfilled, I guess. I should, I do not want one of those standing desks, so I'm all set with that.
But do we have a training budget for?
Yeah. It's just finding the time to go at this point, so, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank
Any
you.
other questions for Deanna? Thank you, Deanna.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Next, we have an update on the Stevens estate.
Chris,
sorry.
out of order so that you can present
Yes.
the master
Sure,
plan,
sorry,
so that
Chris.
way,
We can do that, yes.
If you
Update on
don't
the master
mind,
plan.
just so
So this is, I think, a couple of you had reached out to me at various points to say, can we talk about the master plan implementation and making sure we're really progressing on that. So I had sent some initial thoughts to Chris as to how I thought we could at least start to get a handle on tracking and managing of it, and then we can talk a little bit more about what we might want to do with this, but he can give us an update on what he's done.
And I just wanted to understand the Chris was only given like 4 days notice
Literally
to
a
put
couple
this
of days,
together.
yes. I threw some
So-
ideas at him, and he
Right.
mocked something up for
Exactly,
just,
so this is just a template,
this is Regina, there's
a starting
some
point
random thoughts.
that we can work on and go from there, but, yeah. And he's done a terrific job with the time frame that he
has,
had,
yes.
that he put it together so
Literally
fast.
two or 3 days, yeah.
Yes, go for it.
Thanks,
Sure.
Chris.
And just a quick note on that, these are the types of projects I like.
We know that.
So ask again.
But they do a few things. I think they spotlight our capacity, our agility, but we also take, I think we've been making a push to take information that's sort of sleeping in reports and bring it to life, both from a transparency standpoint so that the residents can see almost in real time how it's unfolding, and then also from an accountability standpoint and sort of just not forgetting about it standpoint. And then as we build more data like this, linking it to other we do our budget goals every year, so we can now tie budget goals to a master plan, strategy, et cetera. So there's a lot of exciting things that can come out of this. So just on the public transparency side, just really quickly, I basically took the strategies in the master plan and converted them into a database so that, on the public website, you could quickly, for example, take a look at sort of the different strategies and where they were and how they're progressing. And then internally, I sort of developed a microsite that would be dedicated toward following the master plan, so everything master plan related. And then just so really quickly, so you were asking about running different queries, for example. So here's all the different master plan elements and strategies. And obviously this is all editable, so we can add additional components, et cetera. So let me actually log in here so we can see. But the ability to go and, track the elements, time frame, add notes, more importantly, the ability to add an owner. So that person then would be the owner of that strategy and could receive reminders. So we could set due dates for follow-ups, et cetera, and they'd actually get an email reminder to go and update that, and et cetera. The ability to attach files, link to other things, provide updates, et cetera. You talked about the ability to do some different queries. So you had asked for maybe looking at like things that involve the selectmen, and maybe a time frame. So that's everything that involves the selectmen that's got a 1 to 5 year time frame that you could then export into reports and do your graphs and some of the other things that you had inquired about. And then using a dashboard type model, we can actually sort of get a real-time status of where everything stands based on different criteria, whether we want to do an age or a status, et cetera. And you had asked about different filters, so these are filtered now by the element. So if I wanted to only see housing, or only land use, et cetera. So this is just kind of a quick way of seeing where we are on all of the strategies that aren't completed. So,
Yeah. So my feeling was I was always going back and pulling up a PDF and scrolling through 180 pages to see what were those items we said we were going to do under, whatever it was. And I just wanted at least to have it in something I could like filter and see what were the 10 items that were relevant. So personally, I think this is awesome if we can connect the actions to the goals of the departments.
So you want to see it at a glance.
Yeah, and then one of the things I'd ask Chris, obviously for futures, not something he could do in a 3-hour turnaround, but and plus would take some thought on our part, but to say what kind of snapshots like this, or bar chart, whatever, do we want to see to give us, a quick snapshot to be able to quickly say, there's 5 items that are in the short 1 to 5 year time frame that aren't even started yet. So let's make sure we remind people to take action on those things, or and the different departments might want to have a view, like the planning board. A lot of the items are planning board items, really, for example. So for them to have a view.
What I would suggest, and I think the next steps that we need to take is to put some sort of a committee together, whether it's 4 or 5 people, to start reviewing this database and determine who's going to take ownership of it, who has to be assigned the different tasks, and then who's going to maintain it. I mean, we don't, right now we have it put into a database, we have the data, we just need to be able to manage it and start assigning it.
Right.
But one person just can't sit down and review all of this and say, okay, this
Totally
person,
agree.
this person, this person has to do it. So I think if we get a working group together, work with Chris, take all the ideas from the board as to
Yeah.
what additional information you want to see on the database, and then we can start
Yes.
putting it to work.
Right.
And start working on the plan.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, because we had talked in different meetings about a master plan implementation committee, and for me, it was just sort of like, I wanted to have something to give them, to guide them, to help them get started, because otherwise, I feel like it would be hard to give them a charge. I don't know, this helps organize their work a little bit. So that was really why I suggested we do
Yeah, I
it.
think Lynn had it too, there's probably other fields we want to add, like maybe priorities, work efforts, things like that, so we can really sort them by the ones we want to tackle first, right? So I think this is great. It's a good start, and the data's categorized and it's all available, and we just need to look at it and see what else we need to make it all happen.
Right.
And another key piece with these systems is if there's anything that has a spatial element to it, we can also map sort of where the different actions are happening. So if we're looking at it on a map, I know a lot of these relate to land and land development, so we can actually develop some GIS layers that tie into what we're doing with the master plan, so we can see it visually on a map. We did something similar for the CPC recently for the community preservation projects, where we actually mapped them and created a database for the projects and sort of priorities, so we can sort of keep rolling this out.
So two thoughts, Chris. Again, awesome. Well beyond anything I see digesting right now, and I think that's part of the challenge. So two thoughts. One relates to there are a number, as we're thinking about this implementation committee, whatever we want to call it, much of this touches different boards and committees within the town. So one of the other things that we may want to think about is making sure that there's an easy way for them to kind of connect up with that. So if I'm on the historic, preservation, right? What relates to that in the master plan that I can quickly see and get my handle on? If I'm on the affordable housing or whatever. So if there's some ways to sort of tag that in there, that draws those committees in, and that may help channel.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. It's very easy. It's just we can filter to a slice, and then we can present that as a page or on their page, et cetera, to see only what pertains to them. That's very easy to do.
Yeah, and the other thing would be from a training standpoint, and maybe I'm down the field, maybe you've already thought about this, but getting people comfortable with a tool like this. Not everybody has Regina's awesome vision with this sort of thing. A lot of people do. But if you can put together, literally that YouTube video of walking through this, because to me, the power of this is going to be not just the folks sort of at the top level or the heaviest lifting folks, but the more that we can get people throughout the whole community comfortable with this, you get that kind of tide coming in of usage. And that's the piece that I think is the real golden ring for us potentially.
Yeah, so we've got a good working relationship with NACAM, so typically when we do any sort of training, we videotape it and have a YouTube library of those. So I think when this reaches maturity and we're ready to implement it and roll out a training, we'd certainly videotape that with some documentation and make it part of that microsite as a resource.
Yeah, and tie it into the orientation guide, the handbook for committee members too, so we all link together.
Yep.
Awesome.
Each one of these action items has the lead responsible group, whether it's the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, whomever, and all the related or contributor groups like Fonant or Historical Commission or whatever. So it's very easy to sort and say, I'm on the Historical Commission. I want to see all the things that are related.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we can filter by any combination of fields that we ask. So they're all good ideas. We can do all of them. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think this is really awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah.
So maybe on a future meeting agenda, we will have a
Maybe in
committee.
July.
Yeah, right. A committee.
We're going to be busy.
I mean, if we're going to appoint a committee, we need to think about how many people we want on it and how we're going to appoint them and whatever. But we'll do that in another meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Okay, the update on the Stevens estate.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow up on the Stevens estate from the last meeting. I think there was a little bit of conversation after the meeting and then the news report that got in the paper about our decision or my recommendation to the board to stop taking bookings based on the financial situation of the Stevens estate. So I do want to reiterate that although the Stevens estate did have several years of profit, which added to the retained earnings, which allowed us for several years to contribute to the infrastructure of the building, in the outlying buildings of the estate, it is projecting to have a deficit in 2019. And based on the bookings that are on the bookings report as of today, which have not changed in the last 5 weeks, there is projected to be a deficit for FY19 and moving into 2020, a further deficit with only 15 bookings. So we did place the hold on all of the bookings until May 1st, which is when the RFP will be responses should be returned to us. At that point, we'll review the RFPs and come back with a further recommendation based on the responses from the RFP. We are moving forward, of course, at town meeting with the articles, Article 8, and there'll be a motion, on town meeting floor to put certain restrictions on the building so that the building can't be torn down and that we have full access to the trails and things like that. So that will be restrictions put on the building itself in the estate. So if we do get a good response from the RFP, and if we decide to sell it, they can't tear the building down, and we have to have public access.
And nor can they go in and start ripping things apart. It is a historical building. It's not just not tear the building down.
That is correct.
It's protecting the integrity of the building.
That's right.
The only thing I have to say, and I know that everybody is using what they believe to be their best judgment, but the more we talk about that there's no bookings and we're not taking bookings, the less bookings we would even get. So it's hard to kind of recover from it when we're putting out our own bad message, frankly. And it's...
In fairness, that is the nature. We're a public board. We can't break the law and have private, and that's not what you were.
Right.
So I'm going to project this on. I had a conversation with a resident who asked me how we could talk about this publicly and how we're hurting the facility, but we can't talk about this. I think it's important for anybody who's invested in the site. We can't have this conversation at all outside of the public view.
No, I do understand, and I do agree, as I think most citizens in town, that it's an awkward relationship that a town is doing, serving liquor and food and having weddings and parties, but I'm just a little troubled that it's almost becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy of the lack of bookings.
Can I respond?
We haven't had bookings. I mean, the fact of the matter is, before we had this discussion, the bookings had fallen off the map. They've just fallen off the map, and they haven't recovered. And knowing that it's 12 months to 18 months to get big events, right? That says, right now, if you're booking an event today, it's possibly after fiscal 2020. You're starting to book events after our next fiscal year, and we don't even have slots coming into this fiscal year, which we would have needed to book last July through December in order for those to show up in 2020. And so, yes, it's an awkward position to be in, but we also have a fiduciary responsibility to the community, which is that, we invest and spend the taxpayers' money in a very responsible way, and we're very accountable for making decisions about who our staffing is, and when you have something that starts to take a loss and that's accelerating, all I can think about is, if this was a school lunch program 15 years ago, we turned ourselves upside down as a town to make sure that $200,000 in school lunches that wasn't paid for got paid for in the next year, because as a town, we decided we needed accountability. And so we have the same sort of challenge when you're talking about this from a financial standpoint. All those other factors about the history certainly weigh in here. But at the end of the day, we have to weigh the economics of that because that's what we're charged with managing an asset. So we'll wait and see.
Well, I just come back to, the RFPs are due May
Right.
1st,
Right.
so, I mean.
So
We'll discuss it then.
We discuss it then.
Right, and we're, if you added in all the costs that it takes to really function up there properly between all the capital and the additional funding to keep that building up and running, it's projected, they would be in a much bigger deficit if they had to pay all the costs to do that. So there's just, I mean, and then the deficit for FY 2020 is only on the first half of the year, and it's going to be projected at over $100,000, so.
No, I understand, but I think you can acknowledge the point that the more we talk about what we can't do, it makes it worse. And I kind of, maybe it's too bad that we didn't start to address this when it first happened. What's going on? Why has things changed? Because as you said, we were doing okay for a while.
Right.
And again, I say that in the same breath, I'm almost contradicting myself. Should the government be in this business? And I would say probably not. I just hope that, I'm just concerned that our options will become more
Well-
limited, and I'm not a big fan of shuttering the building. But we'll deal with
Well,
that,
wait,
as our
May
chairman
1st.
said, yeah, we'll deal with that later.
Just to point out, just to close out on the point regarding the historical preservation, we did add an article down in the consent items. I have there's an item on the Article 8 amendment.
Yeah, we
that
have
would
to
read
do
on
that,
town meeting
yeah.
floor that clarifies, if we were to sell or long-term lease it, it would be subject to historical preservation and continued access to the trails. That was always our intention.
It just
was in the
didn't-
RFP, it just was not in the language of the warrant, so.
Right, I'm glad that you did
To clarify
that.
that for
Yeah.
everyone,
That's what's
that
been
is
done.
always the intention. No one wants the building to be torn down and, made into, or anything to happen to it.
Housing, right.
We all think it's a treasure. We want it to be handled the best way possible. Okay, anything else on Stevens Estate for Lynn? Any questions for Lynn on Stevens Estate? Okay. So now we'll move into consent items. We have a vote to approve transfer of $250,000 from the Special Education Stabilization Fund to the school department operating budget. Lynn, maybe you can give us a few
Yeah,
words.
this is from the stabilization fund, which we set up several years ago to help fund for the ups and downs on the special education for the school department, which is very volatile. They're requesting, because they're going to have a deficit this year of about $250,000 after they've covered everything else that they can. Would be their shortfall for the special education.
And this is why we set it up.
Of the stabilization account right now.
So this is going to bring it down to about a little over a couple $100,000. We are actually we have an article on the warrant to replenish that back up to the $750. I think the article has it for $580 some odd thousand, so it will be back up to the full $750 again. And that article is addressed, removed.
That's why we put this in.
That's why we did it.
Set up this
That's why
account,
we
and
have
it
this
was-
fund.
It's a very innovative account, a very innovative way of handling this type of deficit. And I think
Absolutely.
it was one of the first in the states to do it,
And if we didn't-
credit you and Andrew for putting this together.
If we didn't do it this way, it would come out of operating.
Yeah.
So,
Passing the hat.
yeah.
Madam Chair, I move the Board of Selectmen approve the request of the school department to transfer $250,000 from the Special Education Stabilization Fund to the school department budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I will hop out of order again if I think the only other people in the audience are for the farmer's market, if I am correct. Sorry, or, yes, we will take the vote to approve gift cards distributed to veterans for use at the North Andover Farmers Market next. Just to accommodate those guys.
Madam Chair, on advice of town council as chair of this committee, and because we'd be accepting a donation and then administering essentially, or handing out those funds, I have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Okay, see ya.
We'll be brief.
Yeah, sorry for not getting to you guys sooner.
Don't worry about it. It was interesting.
It was interesting, right?
Yes, actually, it's been a very interesting meeting.
They always are.
Whatever you say.
Anyway, my name is Chris Allen. I am the treasurer for the North Andover Farmers Market. And a little bit about what we're doing. You know, as you know, the farmers market was formed as a way to serve our downtown and to give back to our local community. Over the last 2 years that we've been functioning, one of our issues has been navigating the SNAP programs and the other food voucher programs that give lower income people the ability to buy fresh produce and foods, you know, at the farmers market. Some of our vendors, a handful of our vendors, do participate in SNAP, but handling the program for the entire market is a heavy administrative lift. There's a lot of stuff involved for us to be able to do it on our own. But last year, Phil, who just left the room, was approached by Veteran Services, who asked how we could further open our market to veterans who are living on limited incomes. And Phil had a lot of conversations with Crystal Clooney and Joe LeBlanc from Veteran Services. So what we did, he brought them to one of our planning meetings. Joe and Crystal sat down with us, and we also brought in the Merchants Association, and we developed a concept where we would raise funds to support a voucher program. The program will be known as the Veterans Food Security Initiative. And actually, Phil hounded us over this. So this is Phil's little thing here, but it was a wonderful idea. And in a nutshell, the idea is to supply vouchers or gift cards to veterans so that they could bring to the market, use them as cash, and use them in all of the vendors. And then, you know, the vendors would take those cards and we would reimburse them for it at a later time. So we were trying to do something that was easy for the veterans to use, that was private for them, like a little card, preserving dignity, because that was a really big deal. And it just seemed like a very comfortable, simple way to provide a really big service. And I have to say, we have to thank the Merchants Association, because we're here this evening to offer our initial donation of $2,000 in gift cards to the town for the use of the local veterans. A couple of details about the donation: the cards will be in $5 increments, and we are also going to rely on the decisions that are made between the town and the Veterans Services as to who actually participates in the distribution of the cards. So that isn't anything that the farmers market will be involved in. That'll be, we give this to you, you work with Veteran Services, and Veteran Services will help determine who receives these. We will just be the ones forking over the dollars at the end of the day. And one last item, when you were talking about special town meeting, please don't have it June 13th. Oh, yes.
June 13th is, we finally nailed down a date when we're actually going to have a fundraiser for this particular event. And anyway, because we hope to give a lot more than the $2,000 as the year goes by.
Are we free to say our goal?
What's that?
Are we free to say what the goal is?
Our goal, what did we say, $7,000? $7,000 this year to put towards this program through our fundraising. It's really, it's a wonderful thing that we're actually able to do this.
It's great because as I'm Hillary Stasonis, the volunteer coordinator, and most of the time I'm just recruiting people to come lift tents and sandbags, but there's a lot of people in the last 2 years who've wanted to help out and support the market, but they don't have the physical capacity to literally lift and move things. And having this kickoff fundraiser is a great way to have the community help us raise funds for this program, so that we can give the $7,000 hopefully to the town to help our veterans that are on limited income. So sort of a great way for neighbors to help neighbors and participate in the market without, sweating out there on a Sunday with us. And it's like Chris said, the SNAP programs were we're all volunteer run market. We don't have the capacity to administer some of those programs.
Have a dedicated administrative person at every market to do what the state requires you to do to have this. And we have people ask us continually, do you honor SNAP? How does it work? And we're grateful for those vendors who do that. But
Crystal explained, like, Veteran Services already has a process to evaluate people and their income and whether or not they qualify for services. So they would use that same process to hand out the gift cards. So sort of using a built-in thing. Yeah. yeah, thanks to, yeah.
Well, we can have
Yeah.
Chris maybe briefly.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there he is, right there. I'm sorry. I was like, where is he? How can we miss it?
I'm just lurking back there. So I'm Chris Palermo from the North Andover Merchants Association. I'm the president for 2019. And this was more than just a complicated way to get Phil out of the room so we could talk about him. But this is really, when Phil approached me about this idea, obviously there was a lot of thought put into it. And, I thought it was an amazing program. And I think it goes right in line with what the Merchants Association was, started for. To really do good in the community. And this is just another example that after a decade, this will be 10 years at the Merchants Association that has been, an organization in town. We're still looking for ways, through the farmers market and through everything else to have more of these programs that will help the community. So I, obviously have to thank these volunteers, because everyone involved with the organization is a volunteer, to keep coming up with these sort of great ideas that we can run with and get behind. The farmers market was created obviously to get people downtown, and a lot of our members are vendors at the market, and this Veterans Food Security Initiative will give those people the resources and make it easier for them to get downtown, spend money at the farmers market, and help the economy there, and it's really a win-win. So and frankly, I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm fully behind it, and I'm here to hopefully personally get involved and see its success.
Question?
It really is. We're really excited for the third year. I know it's been a tremendous addition to the downtown every Sunday and during the summer, and it's just going to be again. And then, of course, the Artisans Market, too. So, congratulations to you guys for putting on such a wonderful market for the town and people outside the town, too. So, great.
Joe, you've been sitting patiently. Is there something you wanted to say?
I'll be brief. My name is Joe LeBlanc, Veteran Service Officer, for those who don't know. The Veterans Office is tasked with actively trying to help veterans and their family members navigate state, federal, and municipal benefits. So in the state benefits, we have what's called Chapter 115. So there is a mechanism in place for financial assets and whatnot. But kind of piggybacking in on what Deanna said, having that personal relationship and that connection with the person. Sometimes, a lot of times folks come in and they're in some sort of personal crisis. And we, it helps when we can give someone a gift card, or we can kind of help them load their fridge up. And having that discretion to be able to do that is huge. I said about a third of those folks who come in the office are in some sort of personal crisis. Any assistance we can provide is huge. So again, thank you for the support. A lot of times we're limited. We're kind of stuck in a box when it comes to assets and income and things of that nature. So it's welcomed. So thank you for your support.
No special town meeting on June 13th.
People are used to town meeting on Tuesdays anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
Joe, did you have something else you wanted to mention?
No, I didn't know if there was any questions.
Oh,
Any questions?
no. Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
All right, this sounds really wonderful and awesome. Do I hear a motion?
Move that the Board of Selectmen accept the donation of gift cards to the Veteran Services to be used at the farmers market.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank you
opposed?
very
Motion
much.
passes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Dan, thanks for hanging in there all night, too.
I know, sorry, guys.
You get a long ride home now, too, right?
It drives me nuts.
Go get Phil.
Oh, what'd you tell him?
So next up, we have the request of the Patriotic Observance Committee for permission to close Mass Ave and Salem Street from the Town Common to Ridgewood Cemetery for the Memorial Day Parade and Ceremony on Monday, May 27th, 2019, starting at 9:45.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Yeah, right. Next item is a vote on the maximum useful life of departmental equipment to be financed.
Yeah, this was just for the ball line that we're doing in June.
I'll need for the bond council.
Do we need to read this
Yes.
verbatim? Yeah. Okay, Madam Chair, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote that the maximum useful life of the departmental equipment listed below to be financed with the proceeds of the $542,307 borrowing authorized by the vote of the town passed May 15th, 2018, Article 10, is hereby determined pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7.1, to be as follows. The purpose, police radio equipment, borrowing amount, $247,307, maximum useful life, 5 years. Six-wheel dump truck, borrowing amount, $185,000, maximum useful life, 10 years. A backhoe, borrowing amount, $110,000, maximum useful life, 10 years.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is warrant Article 8 amendment that I mentioned earlier. So this,
Do we need to open the warrant before we do this?
so we can't open the warrant, it's past the deadline, so this is just for us to agree that we like it, and then we will present it on town meeting floor.
Gotcha.
I
Okay,
would-
so it's a...
I would really like to have other people maybe weigh in on this before we vote on it, and then we could vote on it prior to town meeting in case there are some other things that we missed. I mean, there are a lot of people who have a lot of interest in this, and I think, no, well, you could vote on it just before town meeting.
Right, the town council did write this motion for us.
But does it, well, my concern
What
is,
other opportunity would we have for folks to weigh in on it? We don't have
Yeah.
another meeting before town
So,
meeting.
so the impetus was there was a robust discussion on a Facebook page, but it was memories from North Andover, and so it was people with,
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
and so there were probably 40 different people who chose to weigh in and had some opinion one way or another, and the overarching theme was just reiterating the historic preservation and maintaining access.
Right, yeah.
And no apartments, no 700-unit buildings, but
Well, the only thing, I guess they could amend the amendment if they weren't happy with it on the floor.
that's true.
Okay, fine.
Because we can't print it, but
Because we
it's...
can't discuss it.
No.
I mean, they don't have a way to give us feedback before we would vote on it anyway, so.
Well, they could come to our meeting, pre-meeting, that's what I was saying, but you know what? As long as people at home are aware that they can amend this on the floor as they can anything, frankly, so, okay. Well, at least we got the message out there. If they don't,
We did.
then there we go.
Okay, so do we want to,
Madam Chair, I motion that we endorse the amendment as presented to Article 8.
I'll second that.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No, I made my point.
Is it not going to be read?
Oh, sorry. We can read it, sure. So, Article 8, sale or lease of portion of Stevens Estate shown as the event center and function facility. To see if the town will vote to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of a portion of the land and buildings known as the Stevens Estate shown on Lot 1 containing 15.79 acres more or less, located on Osgood Street, shown on the plan entitled Plan Showing Division of Land for a Town Meeting Warrant Article, dated March 28, 2019, and prepared by TEC Inc., 146 Dascombe Road, Tewksbury, Mass., from the Board of Selectmen, for the purpose for which such land is currently held to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of sale or lease of said buildings, this is the additional language, subject to the existing historical preservation restriction and an easement for public parking and public access across Lot 2 as shown on the plan, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell or lease, subject to the existing historical preservation restriction and an easement retained by the town for public parking and access to Lot 2 as shown on the plan. That's the end of the addition. Land or a portion of such land at such time as such land and buildings are no longer serving a municipal purpose, and further that the Board of Selectmen approve any other restrictions, including restrictions on use, that are in the best interests of the town upon such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen may deem appropriate and necessary, and that the Board of Selectmen determine whether all or a portion of the above described property shall be sold or leased, and the boundaries of the property to be sold or leased, and to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the town of North Andover to effect said conveyance or to take any other action thereto. So it added, it was the old warrant article adding that any action is subject to historical preservation restriction and an easement for parking and access to the trails.
And for anyone who couldn't follow all of that information, we mail out our agenda electronically as well as post it physically. And so the emailed out agenda includes a hyperlink on our agenda for every item. And so if you were to click on the hyperlink under this particular section, you'd be able to see the highlighted language that the chairwoman just read. So again, for anyone at home that's watching that had a tougher time following because just
Sorry,
the nature,
yes,
no, that's not your
sorry.
fault, just the nature of the content.
It's quite legally.
They can go on to the Board of Selectmen page on our town website, click on the agendas, look at tonight's agenda and see under section, for consent items, the Article 8 language right there, if you click on the link.
Yes, thank you. It's tough to follow the legal language. The next item is a vote to increase the membership size of the Council on Aging, I believe.
So,
you requested that.
yeah, so a little bit of background. So Council on Aging, one of the fascinating things that's shifting in our community is the amount of resource and focus on that population. And in having several positions open on the Council from Aging and speaking with Joe, who is the chair of the group, one of the concerns that they have ongoing is having a quorum and really having enough people there engaged, especially as the senior center is now coming to fruition and kind of the whole engagement factor. And so part of that discussion was furthered by the fact that we had really an outpouring of folks interested in serving on the council. And because of that, in talking with the chair, he was open to expanding the membership of the council. So again, he would have a quorum, and again, the depth of expertise of folks that are interested in supporting was significant. So that's where it comes from. I don't know if you would add anything more to that.
No, it's just,
Selectman
we've had a
Valencourt.
tremendous interest in serving on that council for folks of all different age groups, which is tremendous. And as Chris said, with some very different and diverse experiences, and all of them willing to, wanting to really help out on the Council on Aging. So it's hard to try to turn folks away, and I think by increasing the number, we have an opportunity to make sure we've got a quorum, and gives other folks a chance to, if they have to miss a meeting, they can miss a meeting. So I think it's just a really indicative of the way that people have really stepped up in this town to want to be part of what's going on and to volunteer. So by increasing this, it just gives other people an opportunity to get involved.
I agree, because you hear, you do get some great people that want to step up, but life changes, they move, they go to Florida or whatever. So I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I just always have an odd number.
Well, it's an odd number.
Yeah.
So I will make a motion then. if I
So
find
how
it.
many did you want to add? There's currently
yeah.
9, 1, 2.
Yes, to 11.
You want to move it to
There's
11?
9, and you want to move it to 11?
Correct.
No, there's 11 and.
Oh, sorry, there's 9
14.
on the website.
Great.
There are two openings, and so we're adding 2 more.
So you want to increase it to 13?
Yeah, this motion
That's
is,
four listed on there.
Right, because there are 2.
one's leaving, I think, right?
Right.
So-
There are two positions that are being filled, 2 additional board members are being added now.
Well,
There's 2 open positions, and
And
you're
we're-
filling them, and then you want to add 2
2 more,
positions.
correct.
That are not on this sheet.
So what would you like the number to be? I
So it's
guess
going to be
we-
13 then, right? We're
Sure.
currently 11, we're going to go to 13, we're going to keep it an odd number. So that the motion as written is maybe incorrect.
Well, this is just a guide for us
I
anyways.
understand that, but as written, it's not, we didn't
Okay.
intend to go to 14.
Right.
Because we wanted to keep it an even
Even
odd
a
number.
Right.
Right. So I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen increase the membership of the size of the Council on Aging from 11 to 13 members.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Good job, guys.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And now you have.
Now we've got the
appointments.
folks, so
Okay.
the quick rundown on this, so we, as I said, it was very it was exciting to kind of see the caliber of folks here. Quintara Costa and Tracy Shea have both already been involved in both the North Andover and Andover Council on Aging, going to fairs. They're in the financial services industry, provide advice and counsel, and kind of their expertise is very practical, hands-on, and as I say, they're already engaged and familiar. That was a very, very powerful, compelling reason to bring them aboard beyond their own interest. David Van Arsdale is a retired clergy. He's been very involved with the community already, and brings a great history of perspective. And Larry Smith has just been in this community and very familiar with a lot of folks who are already on the board.
And he's done a lot of work in Lawrence.
Right.
He was originally from Lawrence years ago and brought, a lot of different programs into Lawrence. He was a volunteer in many capacities over in Lawrence, so really looking to get involved in North Andover as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I will make a motion that we appoint Quintara Costa, Tracy Shea, David Van Arsdale, and Lawrence Smith to the Council on Aging.
You're supposed to
We've
read
got
their
different
terms.
terms.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, you are. I am. I was trying to be. Let me get there. Okay. Move the Board of Selectmen appoint to the Council on Aging Quintara Costa for a term ending June 30th, 2020. Tracy Shea, 2020, I'm sorry. Tracy Shea for a term ending June 30th, 2021. David Van Arsdale for a term ending June 30th, 2020. And Lawrence Smith for a term ending June 30th, 2019.
Second. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we already covered I think that's it. We already covered the new business. We have the town manager's reports. If there's any questions for Lynn. Any other comments or updates from any selectmen?
Sheep sharing, when is that? It's coming up, right?
It is.
May 19th, so after town meeting.
Right.
And then there's also the Glenn Miller Orchestra,
Yes.
May 11th. I think tickets are on sale for that.
And the tickets are still on sale for that, $25. If you get them, I guess, through the senior center. And if you get them online, there's a small fee. So get them at the senior center.
Okay, and our next meeting is town meeting.
Yay.
Pre-town meeting. May 14th, so, great. There we go.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.